relationships are complicated, right? There's not one easy solution. We're going to have to try different things. And when we see somebody else going through that same process, that trial and error, then we have the courage to have, faith to keep going.
Welcome to yourbrilliance.com. I'm your host, Amy Waterman. Do you think you can learn anything from romance novels? Or are they just mass market paperbacks sold to women who don't have anything better to read? Well, if you want to read a book about love, you really only have two choices: a love story or love advice. And let's be honest, you can only read so much love advice before you start to yearn for a really good love story. A lot of college-educated women read romances. They're big business. They're bigger than self-help. They're bigger than mysteries. They're worth $1 billion a year. And men read them too. I was surprised to find out 1 in 6 romance readers is a guy. But can you learn anything from them? Or are they just light entertainment? Well, that's what we'll be asking our guest for today, Amey Zeigler. Amy uses her communications degree to write new adult romances. Her latest romantic comedy is based on her experiences living in Switzerland and France in her 20s. She's also the wife of a loving hubby and the mother of 3 adorable kids. Welcome, Amy.
Oh, thank you so much for hosting me today. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Amy.
Well, I want to know, how did you get into writing romance novels?
Well, I always wanted to be a writer, since I was little, and life is a story, and so I wanted to capture these stories. But I did have a defining moment in my life that turned me to romance. It was when it was after the birth of my 3rd child. I had really bad postpartum depression. Life just had no joy for me. I didn't get any satisfaction. Even if I did something good, I didn't feel good inside. But we went to the library, and I found the 3rd book of a series where I had read the first one, but I hadn't read the second one. And I picked it up and I started reading it. And it was the perfect combination of love, action, adventure, comedy. It had all of those things, and it just hit that sweet spot in my heart. And I was like, how can I do this? Because it was healing to me. It healed me. It helped me to feel love and happiness and all of those emotions again. And it was healing. And I wanted to do that for other people. So I started out writing romances.
See, I love that, because it's not just about, writing fiction and it's easy to write about love. It's about actually writing stories that fulfill a deep emotional need to kind of believe in life again.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I find fiction very healing. We connect with other people. It's our humanness connecting with somebody else's humanness. And I love that.
And it makes me laugh because it's so different from, like I said, love advice books that tell you what to do. And there's a lot of self-analysis, and there's a lot of, what do I do next? And you feel a lot of pressure. With romance novels, you can relax and get caught up and remember that love wins. And it's, yeah. So I want to know, what do people think when you tell them that you write romance novels?
Well, at first when I told people, they kind of gave me this side eye, oh, you're writing category romance, it's just fluffy, unimportant stuff. They wanted me to write some literary great work. And that was kind of hard for me. And I think even people who read romances have kind of this stigma that's attached to it. My husband and I were traveling from France to Switzerland, and we were on this train. And I noticed that one of this fellow passengers was reading, I think it was a Harlequin book. It was a mark that I recognized. I knew it was an American mark. And I wanted to see what she was reading. And so I kind of sidled up to her, and I speak French. And so I said, oh, what are you reading? And she kind of hid the title and kind of, secreted that book away. And she called it a word that I thought was really interesting. It's a French word called bêtise. And I looked it up, and it actually means foolishness or rubbish, something that is not of value. And I kind of continued this conversation, knowing kind of the connotation of the book, but not the denotation of the word that she used. But I kind of asked her, I was like, well, why do you read this? And, what do you like about these? And she's like, it's time. It's something to get here to there, and I read this. And it kind of struck me that she had kind of like a guilt for reading this book in public of all places, that I confronted her about it. So I thought it was interesting that she kind of had like this embarrassed feeling of reading this book in public.
Well, it actually makes me think about a couple of things. First of all, those old romance novel covers were pretty bad.
They were. I was just talking to my sister about this earlier, actually. I said, Harlequin started out, I don't know if you know this, and I actually did some research. They started out as a Canadian company. They wrote to London and they said, we want all of your romance. And they sanitized them for, an American audience, and then they produced them, and they were very successful at this. And then for some reason in the 80s, they kind of took this, I don't know if it was, somebody's idea or if it was movie influence or whatever, but they had like these women with, they call them bodice rippers, with the things off, the shoulders exposed in the clutches of a man, and they've kind of gone away from that. And now they're smart and intelligent women who are battling real life problems in a maybe, over the top setting, which is fine,
Yes. And I actually think that thanks to Kindles and e-readers, that I think more and more women feel comfortable reading romance novels. Maybe they feel like they'd be judged if they had that cover, somebody knew what they were reading. But on a Kindle, I'm thinking also of 50 Shades of Grey here. It's so easy to read this stuff in private and enjoy it and keep it something for you alone.
Right. Something where people don't judge you or say anything or give you the side eye or ask questions, heaven forbid, on a train.
So I actually want to go back to something you said, because this is so true. So a lot of people who haven't read modern romances have this view of romances like they were 20 years ago, where there was very strict gender roles and it was all, things, it was very scripted. Today, there are so many good romances that, as you said, they're smart, intelligent women. They're about single moms. There's a big effort to get more diversity in there. The women often have businesses. They're self-employed. So tell us about the modern romance versus those ones that had Fabio on the cover.
Oh, I love modern romance. They are strong women and strong men who love them. They are women who are facing problems. Sometimes they have children. They are juggling families. They are juggling careers. They are people like you and me who have their problems ratcheted up a little bit so that we can see them and connect with them and say, you know what? That's something I deal with in my life. And maybe it's something way over the top, like, my best friend just got murdered, if it's a murder mystery, which I hope I never have to deal with. But they go through these same kind of problems that we do. And I love it because it is so modern. If you've got a book out there and you're a diverse background, write that book. We need those books. We want to hear those voices.
So here's another question then. So again, we're looking at with the modern romances. Do you think that women can get good love advice from modern romances as opposed to, say, advice columns or Cosmo or something like that?
I do. People enjoy, I don't like it when people tell me love advice, like, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. I do when I need it, but it's so much more fun in a story when somebody's going through what you're going through and they kind of guide you through what they're going through, and you win with them, you lose with them. They're like a best friend. It's like curling up to a best friend who's telling you their story of how they overcome incredible odds, and they overcame it with endurance and passion and love and loyalty and all of these things that make romance novels great. And you do it in a fun, entertaining way. I like having big backdrops, over the top characters, but in a way that relates to problems that you and I face.
Yeah, and when I think about something like Cosmo always says, follow the script and you will get the result. But with romance novels, there's always the unexpected obstacle in the way. There's also a lot of, embarrassing situations. Like, how many of us have gotten into a situation that we're just so ashamed because we maybe confessed our love and he said no? That stuff happens in romance novels, and you see how it goes. There's not this false promise that if you do 1, 2, and 3, you're going to get the guy in the end.
Yeah, in fact, I like to write emotionally complex characters where they have to try a few times. It's not just an easy solution, that there is some big unsurmountable problem, because I believe that relationships are complicated, right? There's not one easy solution. We're going to have to try different things. And when we see somebody else going through that same process, that trial and error, then we have the courage to have, faith to keep going. To try different things, I wiped away a tear reading a book saying, oh my gosh, this person gets me. They know what I'm going through. Any book on unrequited love, and oh my gosh, I am there. I have been through that. I have lived that. I know what that's like.
So I have to ask you then the question that a lot of critics actually say romance novels are too formulaic because they always have to have a happy ending, and real life isn't like that. What would you say to that?
I love that romance has a happily ever after. If it doesn't have a happily for now or a happily ever after, it's not romance. Why is that so powerful? Because it gives us hope. It gives us hope that things will turn out. It gives us hope that even if my life is a mess right now, this character in this book, they resolved their conflict. They had a happily ever after. And I have hope that somewhere, sometime down the road, maybe not today, maybe not next week, but that I can have that happily ever after. And it gives us hope to carry on, even when things are hard.
So there's another interesting criticism that I've heard about romance novels. They say that, well, first of all, not only single women read romance novels, a lot of married women. In fact, I believe the average romance reader is actually a married woman. I think she earns a fairly good income. She's employed. She's got a very happy marriage. And some critics say that the romance novel, because it presents true love and love that endures and love that goes across all these obstacles, is actually an unrealistic kind of love, and it's going to make these married women dissatisfied with their real life husbands and their real life, real lives.
I think you should talk to the husbands of those women, because I guarantee you they are much happier. The beautiful thing about fiction, as opposed to, say, like a movie or something else, is that we humanize these people. We connect with them. And as women, we want to connect. And even if we connect with somebody on fiction, like I said, it's very healing. It heals us, and it helps us to look at the people around us in new light as well. So when I'm angry at my husband and I pick up a romance novel, I start to see him in a different light. I go, you know what? He is imperfect. I know he has, all the faults that he has, but I start to see his humanness, because the people in these characters, in these books, look at people in a human way. We start to humanize them. Whereas in movies and in other sometimes genres, you don't get to see that personal inside, the thought process, the ache, the heartache, all those things that you can get when you're inside a character's head in a novel. What I love.
So true, because I actually think romantic comedies are much more unrealistic than actually romance novels, because with romance novels, most romance novels switch perspectives back and forth between the heroine and the hero. So you get to see what he's thinking at the same time as what she's thinking. But with romantic comedies, you never, unless they have a conversation with friends, you never really get to know what they're feeling inside.
Right. And that's actually changing. In my latest release that's coming out in July, my editor actually approached me and she's like, I would love to know what Yves Clermont is thinking through all of this. I want his perspective. So I rewrote that whole entire book from first person, third person, added his perspective. And I actually really enjoyed getting into his head, and kind of like, he's a little broody. He keeps to himself. He's a Swiss man. He's not prone to affectionate, name calling or open affection. And so it was really interesting. And I loved sharing that part with my readers, because here it was, I was giving them a gift, which was Yves Clermont's heart and the thoughts that he was going through and how he thinks and how he processes. And it was a bear of a rewrite, but I love it even more now. It is so much more well-rounded. I feel like it's funnier. I feel like you understand him more. I just love it. Everything about it.
Yeah, and just to clarify for readers, that's your book, The Swiss Mishap, right?
Yes, The Swiss Mishap. Yes, thank you.
And I do want to add that that book is also a book about chocolate.
It is. I am so excited to share this book because before I lived in Switzerland in my 20s and I didn't really like chocolate. I didn't really speak French, and all of these things I learned, and I wanted to share this love of this country, the people, the culture. All of these things are in my book. You get to, there's even a recipe for easy chocolate mousse if you're not much of a cooker or a baker like I am, then you can do all of these things. You get to know how hard it is to move to another country. All of these challenges are in there, plus love. I love it. It's just fun and funny.
So and you've got some other books. You've got Baker's Dozen and one more that's not coming to me at the moment.
Yeah, no, Baker's Dozen is out already. That's a romantic suspense. So it's set mostly in St. Louis, and she's an investigative journalist. She uses disguises to take out the baddies in St. Louis. It's fun. She meets a man who is also looking to track down this mob, but he's mysterious and good looking, and he also fights. And they kind of keep each other on track. But he keeps kind of lying about who he is. So part of the mystery is discovering who he is too. And my editor is now looking at the second book of that Baker's Dozen series. So that's the next one that I'm hoping will come out probably in the next year. So hopefully that will be putting into work. So two published, one couple of others in the wings, lots of other things going on. As a writer, you've always got lots of fires and the irons in the fire.
Fantastic. Now, for those of you watching, if you want to get your copy of Baker's Dozen or The Swiss Mishap, or get on Amy's newsletter list to find out about the new books as they come out, we have a link for you. Just go to yourbrilliance.org/romance. That's yourbrilliance.org/romance. Thank you so much, Amy, for coming on and waving the banner for romance novels. And I wanted to know if you had any last message you would like to leave our viewers with.
Well, romance writers love their audiences. They love their readers. This is why we do it. Like I said, I want people to feel healed, to go through this emotional journey with me together and my characters, and to be healed when they're done. To give them the courage to face what other problems you are facing in your life. That is why we write. We write from our hearts, we write from our experiences, and we want to share this with you so that you can overcome whatever it is that's plaguing you in your life.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And thank you out there for watching. We hope to see you again soon. Until then, let your brilliance shine.